What is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? I am Erik, and this is Erik Bets Fights. Tonight we're going to do a real quick betting breakdown for this weekend's UFC card, Giga Chikadze versus Calvin Kattar. I have a little bit of a goal for this video. Every time I make a video of any kind, I blab for like a half hour. Trying not to do that tonight. This is going to be a quick one, ideally. So all we're going to do is go through the card. We'll start at the bottom and work to the top. I'm going to give a brief breakdown of each fight and also talk to you about the bets that I've got going on. The card kicks off with TJ Brown versus Charles Rosa. I do not have a bet for this fight. I also don't really have a breakdown for this fight because I have not done tape study on the new opponents that have happened in the last few days. So I didn't have a bet when it was TJ Brown versus Gabriel Benitez either, and I haven't done the Charles Rosa tape study. So obviously, largely because of the last minute replacement thing here, TJ Brown is a big favorite. I said I don't have a bet. I actually do. I did kind of a silly bet. I'll tell you about it later. I made a little bit of a parlay based on just kind of fading the late replacements here, but I'll tell you about it when we get a little further up the card. Next fight is Kevin Croom versus Brian Kelleher. Like I said, I didn't do the tape study on the replacements, so I don't have anything on this one besides the fact that I did throw it in that late replacement parlay. I threw TJ Brown and Brian Kelleher because they were, the recipients of the late replacements. So I put those two in a parlay with Caitlin Chikadze, and it paid like plus 196, I think. Next fight, Ramiz Brahimaj versus Court McGee. I have what might be a little bit of a hot take on this one. I went into the tape study fully expecting that I was going to like a bet on Brahimaj here. He's obviously a young, skilled up-and-comer. We're probably going to see really good things from him in the future. But after the tape study, I was left thinking, I don't know how this guy beats Court McGee. I understand Court McGee is 37 years old. I understand he's not very fast. He's not very powerful. He's not very athletic. Watching Court McGee move around the ring actually kind of reminds me of what it used to be like to watch Chuck Liddell move around the ring. He's got kind of a weird, like, old man movement to him. You can tell all of his he needs some oil, like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. You can tell all of his joints are creaky and just don't work that well. But anyway, after watching the tape, this is what I got to thinking. So the people who are choosing Brahimaj, I know some people are believing he'll win by submission, which is possible. I mean, Court McGee, he's a 30-fight veteran. He's fought some of the best fighters in the sport. The guy's never been submitted, never once. That doesn't mean he can't be. Everybody who's been submitted could have said at one point in time that they'd never been submitted. Most of them weren't 30 fights into their career. But even so, I don't think Brahimaj can submit Court McGee. I don't think Brahimaj can take Court McGee down and wrestle him to a control-based decision. And if he can't do either of those things, then that leaves us standing up. That leaves us either clinching against the cage or striking out in open space. I don't really like Brahimaj to win the fight either of those ways either. I mean, if the fight takes place out in open space, Court McGee's not a great striker. But the thing with Ramiz Brahimaj is unless this is something that his coaches have really talked to him about and changed about his game, he just doesn't have any volume. He just doesn't put out enough volume to win a striking-based decision. So I ended up feeling like, since we were pretty close to, pretty close to a coin flip. Let me see what the odds were exactly. I ended up putting, it was a coin flip. I ended up putting 2 units on Court McGee at minus 110. And by the way, folks, if you ever want to see written breakdowns of my bets, I do post those on my profile at betmma.tips, which is betmma.tips/erikblock. So if you find my bets there, you'll find a little icon that's got like a piece of paper and a pencil. Just click on that and it'll pull up my written breakdowns if you're ever interested in taking a look at those. So anyway, I ended up putting 2 units on Court McGee. I think Court McGee might grind out an old man decision here. Next fight, Joseph Holmes versus Jamie Pickett. I tried to watch tape on Holmes. I did all the tape study on Pickett when he was fighting Caio Borralho. And I actually had a little bit of a hot take there. Not that I was choosing Pickett to win necessarily, but I did see a path to victory for him there. That is something that I might look to exploit if I see something similar in a Caio Borralho opponent in the future. So maybe we'll talk about that later. But I tried to do the tape study on Joseph Holmes, and I just couldn't get my interest level up enough to even really dig into it. If I remember correctly, Joseph Holmes has won like his last 4 fights by rear naked choke, so maybe that's something to look at here. That was against low-level competition. Not that Jamie Pickett is super high-level competition, but he's a guy who's been around in the UFC and has fought UFC-level competition. So I don't know. Maybe you look at Holmes to win by submission here, but I wouldn't bet on it. I literally wouldn't bet on it. Next fight is Bill Algeo versus Joe Anderson Brito, which is a fight that I am interested in and that I do feel like I kind of have some reads on. I was just going to take a drink. I should show you all my new Erik Betts Fights coffee mug. As you can see, my new Erik Betts Fights poster. I'm not pointing the right way. That was an awkward point. Just 1 second. Bill Algeo versus Joe Anderson Brito. I do think this is an interesting fight. I ended up putting 2 units on Joe Anderson Brito here. I got him at -120, so just about a coin flip. I'm going to give you the basic breakdown of the read that led me to make that bet. Joe Anderson Brito loves to come forward aggressively, headhunting in that first round. He likes to come out. He swings really hard. He puts his all. He's kind of that everything all the time fighter, you know. He's not looking to finesse you and touch you up. He's trying to take your head off, especially out the gate in that first round. And Bill Algeo, he's a tough guy. I believe he's never been knocked out, so that's something to keep in mind. But like I said about Court McGee, just because he's never been, just because Bill Algeo's never been knocked out doesn't mean he's not ever going to be knocked out, right? But Bill Algeo loves to hang out with his chin in the air and his hands down around his waist. He loves to kind of do that real loosey-goosey style where he's not really covering up and protecting himself. And I don't think that's a great idea against a guy who's going to maraud forward on you looking for the chin like Joe Anderson Brito in that first round. So I think there's a decent chance that Brito finds that knockout in the first round. And then I realized, well, okay, if I was willing to make a money line bet on Brito based mostly on that read, then don't I owe it to myself to at least sprinkle that round 1 finish? So I did. I put 0.2 units on Brito to win by KO or TKO in round 1. I got that at plus 1150. Do I think that's going to hit? I don't know. It'd be cool if it does. But here's also how I'm looking at this fight. If it doesn't play out that way, I think it could be a good live betting spot because I do think we could see Algeo take over down the stretch. Algeo's a tough guy. He's a well-rounded guy. He's a lot bigger than Brito. If I remember correctly, I know Algeo is 6 feet tall, and I think Brito, depending upon where you look, is anywhere from 5'6" to 5'8" to as low as 5'6" even. So he's a much smaller guy. I mean, he's a pretty physical guy, but down the stretch, if he tires out, Bill Algeo is the kind of big guy who could put his weight on him, especially if they're on the feet, if they're clinching and that sort of thing. He could wear on him. I could definitely see Algeo winning a decision or even finding a submission down the stretch potentially if Brito gets really tired. Our next fight, Vyacheslav Borshev versus Dakota Bush. I'm just going to call him Slava Claus for Borshev because I don't have to say that name over and over again. This is a pretty straightforward breakdown. I mean, this is a really binary fight. Obviously, we're looking at a striker versus a grappler here. I didn't end up making a bet here. I didn't feel strongly about a read either way. I do see some people who are on Bush as an underdog, and I don't hate that. Let me see what his odds are at right now. He's up as high as anywhere from plus 150 to like almost as high as plus 170. I don't hate a shot on Bush there because, I mean, the kid can wrestle. He can come out here with a grappling-based approach, and we know that Slava Claus can be susceptible to that kind of approach. However, we also know that he's working at alpha male, so he's going to be getting better at his wrestling, at least his defensive wrestling, if not his offensive wrestling. But Slava is a very dangerous striker. He's got very fast, crisp, powerful hands. Dakota Bush, one thing I put in my notes when I was doing tape on this was I was like, Dakota Bush does, he can be pretty active with leg kicks, and he can land hard leg kicks, and we've seen Slava be somewhat susceptible to leg kicks, but I felt like I was almost like trying to throw him a bone there, because it's like, okay, yeah, maybe Dakota Bush could have some success with leg kicks against Slava, but in order to have that success with leg kicks, he's going to have to be standing with Slava, which he doesn't want to do. So it's almost like a participation trophy, like, oh, you landed a few leg kicks right before you got your head knocked off. So yeah, even though I did notice that read when I was watching tape, I wouldn't recommend that he try to leg kick his way to a victory here. That would not be a great idea. But Yeah, I guess I lean toward thinking that Slava could find a knockout here. Would it shock me if Bush was able to take Slava down and either submit him or wrestle his way to a top control decision? It wouldn't shock me. So yeah, I ended up staying away from that one because I just didn't really have a strong read one way or the other. However, the next fight, this is a fight where I do have a strong read. This is probably my strongest read on the whole card, and I'm surprised that more people don't feel this way. So this might even be kind of a hot take. I've heard a lot of people say that they feel that Chikadze that the odds are too long on this fight. That Chikadze shouldn't be up at like minus 180. I honestly think she should. I honestly think she should be minus 200. When I watched tape on this fight, and the way that I watch tape, I know this is the way a lot of other cappers do it as well. I try to go in to my tape study as blind to the odds as I possibly can. I mean, sometimes you end up seeing the odds on Twitter or wherever, but I don't spend time looking at them. So usually even if I get a glimpse of something, I won't remember it by the time I'm watching tape or whatever. So my idea is that I don't want those odds to have any effect on the reads that I'm getting and the things that I'm seeing and where I end up setting my own odds. So I watch the tape study, I type up some notes, and then based on those notes, I come up with, well, this is where I would line the fight. And then I look at the real odds and see if I see any value there. After doing the tape study on this fight, I was like, I think Caitlin Chukaghian should be anywhere from minus 200 to even higher, minus 220, minus 240. Like, call me crazy. Maybe I am crazy. But the thing is, I don't see a big reason to think that this fight plays out any differently than the last one. And if the fight plays out on the feet, if Jennifer Maia doesn't come out with a wrestling heavy approach, which she rarely does, she's only landed 4 takedowns in the UFC or something. Unless she comes out with a wrestling heavy approach, this fight plays out on the feet. And you're not going to win a striking based decision against Caitlin Chukaghian. That's a tall order. That's a tall order for anybody. She's got the length. She's got the output. She's got those key eyes. She's going to be making it sound like a tennis match out there. Even if she's hitting the air, she's going to have those optics and those audials. I don't know if that's a word, but this fight's probably going to decision. It's probably going to play out on the feet, and Caitlin Chukaghian is going to be throwing those strikes and making those sounds, looking and sounding good for the judges. And even if Maia does come out with a wrestling heavy approach, I'm not 100% convinced that she can consistently take Chukaghian down and keep her down. Chukaghian she's got a pretty good get-up game. She's not a fish out of water on the ground. I don't think we're going to see Jennifer Maia come out here, thinking she's Mark Coleman or anything. I don't think that's going to happen anyway. And even if it does, I kind of still favor Chukaghian here. So she's sitting around minus 180 now, I think. I don't even hate a bet on her there. I probably wouldn't bet her there. I'd parlay her maybe. I'm confident that she's going to win this fight. So, I think she could be parlay material. I don't see any reason why it plays out much differently from how it did last time. The next fight, Rogerio Bontorin versus Brandon Royval. This is, very likely our fight of the night type thing here. Well, obviously the main event we could be looking at a fight of the night there as well. But this fight is likely to be very exciting. Brandon Royval, when I think of that guy, I literally think of the Tasmanian devil spinning around in his dirt tornado or whatever. And this is one of those fights, if you've watched my breakdown videos before, you probably know that I kind of have this theory that I ascribe to, that like when a fight just seems like it's going to have so much dynamism, so much movement, so much craziness, then I start to think like there's a lot of variables there, and it's hard to really, everything's moving so much that it's hard to really get a grasp on it and really lock down a strong read. And this was one of those fights for me. I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I think for me, it's going to be, as Clint McLean would say from the Die Hard MMA podcast, it's a popcorn and fireball fight for me, I think, because, Royval he's very skilled, but he's also really wild. Bontorin is very skilled as well, but he takes a more measured approach. He does, when he swings hard. He puts himself out of position, and he does put himself off balance. He's not super measured with the way he throws his strikes. He really gets into it, but he's got a more measured approach as far as not really getting wild, not putting out a ton of output. He can be kind of stale at times as far as not really throwing a lot. But I guess my overall read here is that Royval is probably going to kind of dominate with all of his craziness, and I think Bontorin could have a hard time keeping up. I think we could see Bontorin fade down the stretch. I don't even hate the idea of Royval finding a submission in this fight at some point. Just because of the craziness that could take place in that fight, I would lean toward potentially betting the underdog if I was going to, whoever it was. And then I looked, and it was Bontorin, and he was plus 145. I didn't like either of those. I could potentially bet Bontorin as an underdog there, but I would need to be getting a little more value on him in order to do that. So, yeah, I'm staying away from that fight betting wise. I'm just going to hang out and have fun with it. Next fight up, the People's Main Event. The People's Main Event. Jake Collier versus Chase Sherman. Of course, I'm having some fun there. That's kind of been the most made fun of fight in quite a while. So, yeah, some real high-level stuff there. I don't have a lot of interest in this fight, and I'm the guy who loves heavyweight MMA. I do. I don't know why. I even love bad heavyweight MMA. I love watching heavyweights. Whenever a new heavyweight debuts in the UFC, I'm the first guy to be like super excited about it, looking him up, seeing who he is. I love heavyweights. I don't know why. Anyway, I lean Jake Collier here. I've seen some people on Sherman based on the fact that, you know, he's the true heavyweight. He's the bigger guy. He's the more powerful guy. And I can see that, but, you know, I think Jake Collier gets a bad rap. I think Jake Collier's a decent boxer. He puts out pretty good output for heavyweight. I mean, he minds his P's and Q's okay, you know. Compared to a lot of other heavyweights, I guess what I'm saying is Collier actually boxes. He's not a super high-level boxer, but, you know, he kind of keeps it tight. He moves well. He keeps a guard up. He's not he's not what I picture when I picture a heavyweight. Body-wise, absolutely he is. But, yeah, I lean toward thinking that Collier's just going to kind of keep it tight, put out more output, and win just a boxing-based decision here. Could Sherman catch him and knock him out? I guess so, but I don't lean toward thinking that that's going to happen. I stayed away from betting this fight. If I was going to bet it, I'd probably bet the over 2.5 because I lean toward thinking it's going to be one of those, you know, sloppy heavyweight slugfests where nobody ends up knocking the other one out, and over time they just kind of get tired and the output falls off and they're just throwing sluggish strikes. That's what I think it's gonna look like. I think Collier's gonna win a decision. And finally, we get to the main event of the evening: Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. I think my read is about the same as a lot of other people's. I do lean Chikadze to win here, but it does. The pendulum does sway Kattar's way the longer the fight goes. At least I think. You know, we don't know that for sure. We've seen Giga Chikadze tire out in the past, but it's been a while. You know, he could have shored that up. I know that's one of those things that's pretty tough. I feel like when people decide to fix their cardio, that is a pretty tough thing to fix. I mean, it's not like you're born with it and stuck with it. You can make it better, but it's a tough one. But I think Chikadze is just such a dangerous, just accurate and crisp and dangerous striker, and creative, and finds interesting angles to come from. Of course, he's got that Giga kick where he can dig his toe right into your liver there. I expect Chikadze to do very well in the early going. I do agree with that read. We've been hearing a lot that if we start to get into round 3, round 4, round 5, we could see Kattar start to take over. But even if that does happen, you got to win 3 rounds of 5. You got to win 3 rounds of 5 to get a decision. So unless Kattar's able to pour it on enough late that he can find a finish on Giga, then it's one of those things that could come down to the 3rd round. Giga wins round 1. Giga wins round 2. Fast forward to the future. Kattar wins round 4. Kattar wins round 5. Now it's like, oh, in round 3, was there a certain point in round 3 at which the momentum shifted? I don't know. It's kind of a fireball and popcorn fight for me there too, just because I think it's going to be a really fun fight. If I was gonna bet it, I would bet it live. Yeah, I don't think I would do a pre-flop bet on that one. I guess if I have to make a pick, I'm gonna get crazy here. I'm gonna say Chikadze by finish, TKO in round 3. I don't know. Kattar's tough to finish, but that's gonna be my official / unofficial prediction. But let's take a final look at the bets that I have for this card before we call it a night. I've got a straight bet on Chikadze and got her at minus 155. Got 2 units on that. I've got 2 units straight on Joe Anderson Britu. Got him at minus 120. I've got 2 units straight on Court McGee. Got him at minus 110. Then I have, I can't remember if I mentioned this one or not. I have a totals parlay here. I parlayed McGee and Brahimai over 2.5 rounds with Chikadze and Maya over 2.5 rounds. I've got 1 unit on that. That parlay came out to plus 103. I've got that sprinkle I mentioned earlier, 0.2 units on Joe Anderson Brito to win by TKO in round 1. I got that at plus 1150. And then I've got just this like square fade the late replacements parlay I put together. I parlayed TJ Brown, Kelleher, and then I threw Chikadze in there too, just to give it a little more value because I'm confident in Chikadze and winning. Got her at 180 there because I just made that parlay yesterday or the day before, but I did get her at minus 155 when I bet her straight up. Thanks so much for joining me tonight, folks. I am Eric, and this is Erik Bets Fights, reminding you to play it smart, play it tight, and let's grow those bankrolls, gang. We'll see you next time.